Take these off. Just want to say thanks for everyone turning up. Where everyone's got busy lives, so it's great that you come and engage. The purpose of today is build as kind of a focus group. So I will start, and I can talk through obviously the key priorities in my role, but also give you a bit of an update to get things flowing on what has been the commercial performance across the key areas. And I'll probably maybe pause after each one, an opportunity for Q&A, and if you've got questions and things like that, I can answer. And I think there might be some people who've got questions online or stuff coming in. Mm-hmm. So I'll chat through retail, ticketing, where we are in hospitality, sponsorships particularly, the larger stuff for next season, and then a bit of a summary to help talk through kind of what the priorities are of the months ahead. And then I'm aware that the Trust has previously shared with me, there was a session done, I think, last season on a whole number of ideas on how we could increase our revenues, and I've got those notes. But if there's ideas from the floor that you pick the stuff you want me to address, then I can talk through those. I think the first thing to do would to probably share that there is a huge amount of work going on behind the scenes. I'm aware when Cameron did his update recently on the website that probably some of that work maybe not as visible to fans at this stage. It might feel like there's not a lot happening, but there's a massive amount of work going on to professionalise the commercial operation we have, and also generate revenue both for this season, but also look forward to next season. So there's a significant amount of work going on. And that really brings to a fore what is the role of me and my team here. It is about generating income and generating profitable revenue to try and make the football club financially sustainable as quickly as possible. And that's fundamentally why someone like me, but also me particularly, exists in this football club. So maybe go on to first area. I'll touch about retail, give you an update. Obviously, we've had all the shirt launches. We've had amazing support and very strong sales ahead of budget for all of our home shirt sales. So if you look at the home shirt, we ordered north of 1,000 shirts. We did a top-up order, and just today we've had a second order due to drop today as well. The away shirt sold very well, and the third shirt sold well, and both the away and the third shirts have got second delivery section coming in next week. So we're trying to keep ahead of demand and supply. We have a great supplier in Neil's. They manufacture in Ireland and here kind of locally, so we are able to place relatively small volumes and actually top them up as demand. So our cash flow around that is great. And then we've had some demand for what's called the goalkeeper shirt, but the black shirt, when we launched the third shirt, that black goalkeeper shirt, which actually people just like as a shirt. So we've ordered a quantity of those, and they'll be in towards the back end of next week as well. So the real couple of windows is really the next November matches, and then really Christmas. We've looked at that, and we've got things like Christmas jumpers and a broader range coming for that Christmas period. As we get into January and February, we start to look towards the end of the season. Actually, how much should we buy and how much are we going to sell towards that? But I think over the next few months ahead, it's been a great performance, and we're restocking to make sure that the retail and the shop continues to perform well. One area that hasn't probably performed as well for us is the training wear range. So again, not that it matters if it's before or after my time, but we order some stock training wear from the manufacturer, and then we badge that up and various things. That hasn't sold so well, and I think George and I sat down with Emil's just yesterday, in fact, and said actually how we're going to look at our range going forward, and do introduce the core items for football, which is predominantly replica kit and replica stuff like that. A small amount of training wear and warm-up gear that the players might want, and then things like a leisure range. So how we look at more of a leisure range that might be in spring, etc. But our range will probably adapt a little bit as we go into next year. A couple of things that we are looking at and probably see some changes relatively soon. The shop opening hours. We're not open all the time, so I know Stuart needs support in that area, but how we open to make sure that we're available. We've got an online store, but how we open, we're available here as much as we can. It's being looked at, and our e-commerce platform is probably suboptimal at the minute. So there is some work to be done visually on, how does that look, but also on what's called the shopper journey. How can you buy stuff with one click and all that sort of stuff. We're currently involved with a contract with the existing supplier, but we need to improve that, and that is not a small task, probably a task that may have to wait until March, April, after we're at the bulk of the retail orders. But our e-commerce platform, and then how that relates to stock and how that relates to selling in the shop and online and putting that all together, needs a bit of work. So that I'm not going to swap job. Before I move on to the next thing, is there any particular questions on retail at all that I can talk through or address?
Just one. You talked about probably you thinking on leisure wear.
Yeah.
Going back many years now to when we had the Nike kits, some of the very popular leisure wear was just a simple shirt with badge on, obviously the Nike badge, but no commercial items on. So it was basically a very plain thing, but it was very popular. People would want to walk around with a sponsor on that. Are you going to be looking at something like that as a range within your leisure wear?
Yeah, we've talked about things like, do we launch a 1907 range, for example, which is not particularly have some more subtle branding. We talked about bucket hats, and we talked about all that. I think as we go, we'll probably put some seasonal items in, probably for spring, summer, because if you think about that, there might be a gap. The other piece it's worth talking about is we started the kit process for next season yesterday, which is for different reasons. Last year we probably weren't ordering and getting deliveries, and so we didn't launch shirts until August, September, October type time. So we've got into some of those. That'll be far early this year, so it'll be more in line with sort of the Premier League timings of late this season, actually right at the start of the financial year, the 1st of July, we'll have shirts available for next year. So that's the plan. So there's that funny gap between end of the season, so there's promotion or playoffs. What do we do around that? You've got like 6 weeks or so where we need to keep the shop ticking over, we need to keep it busy, and we'll be looking at those particular items there. And we've got lots of advice from not just O'Neill's but a range of suppliers saying what are the items that are popular. So we see things in other football operations, we see things in other sports clubs and stuff in general saying actually these are particularly attractive items, or this is going to be the next thing, and we can try and jump on that craze or that wave. Yeah.
You mentioned about e-commerce, and I get that the longer term it might take a bit more work, but have we identified issues with the online shop at the moment that exist? Just for example, when you go on it, you go to the main menu down the side, half the items don't appear. You have to go searching through filters to find things like scarves. And I only found that last night, so I was actually going to come and say, did you realise the scarves were on there? But then I found them via filters, and it's little things like that.
Yeah, it's
you're having to search for the basics.
We spent on Monday. So I'll come on to ticketing. On Monday, we spent 4 hours. To be fair, with Tony's support as the Tony Partner Director, myself, Stuart, and Tony spent 4 hours going through line by line every single piece. Yeah, so we're aware of all the issues. There's kind of a risk and a challenge around it. The risk mid-season is actually launching. I know you're the dev site, and I know you can transfer stuff over, but actually doing that mid-season is when there is a lot of volume going through this side of Christmas, is actually kind of a risk for us. As we go into kind of February through to April, that is significantly de-risked. So the other reality is, I think it's a question of investment and priorities as well. To set up a whole new e-commerce system will cost a relatively large sum of money, and it'll be a significantly better experience, which will then sell more. But it's a kind of saying at what time do we do that? So we do that, but it's suboptimal at the minute, but we're aware of all the issues. Yeah.
One of the things that potentially could not solve that, but make it slightly easier is do we think that the official site is used well enough to promote things that are on the cook shop? Because then you could have, if you actually did direct stories that have an indirect link. So you do a story about we've got this new scarf, and it actually takes you to that page, and we're doing that on a regular basis, because it does seem that the official site doesn't promote cook shop stuff enough.
I'll talk about it now. Actually, so the digital ecosystem we have e-commerce shop, which is one system. We have ticketing, which is future ticketing, and we have our website, which is those are 3 separate but connected digital systems. A couple of weeks ago, we spent the whole afternoon with future ticketing, look at the journey and the simplification around that and how that can be made better for fans. We did on Monday the e-commerce site, and on Wednesday we did the actual website. And all of those need simplifying in terms of the shopper experience, buying things, and to be better connected, which is your piece. So yeah, Greg and the media team said the action from the Wednesday meeting with the web developers is we need to do what's called a wireframe. I need to go through every single drop down and say, where does that take you? Where does that not take you? And it's not massive, it's just labour intensive. But Wednesday we met with the web designers and said, yeah, we'll spend the time to map out that wireframe of exactly where you go and how many have to do that. But I'll do it very much from a commercial perspective. And obviously the website's used for information, updates, but also, as the portal to the world to sell stuff. But joining those three up is critical. There are some systems coding issues in that you're banging together different technology, but it could be better even with some improvements on how we do that, and some of those sit with our own site actually, which again I think we need to simplify. If you think about the site, we've got load of information. We've also got 4 or 5 buttons across the top that says sharp, adapt, and we start to bounce into other places. But yeah, we did it on just last Wednesday actually. Yeah. I'll move on to ticketing if I can, just because it might address that. I guess my note here is we continue to assess the digital ticketing journey. As I said, we spent half a day with Future Ticketing last week on training and really a snagging list. Technically, our ticketing system is based on a certain type of code. Other football clubs and sports providers also use that, and there are within that constraints of that code, there are improvements we can make. So I think an example, Stockport County is built on exactly the same ticketing system as ours. If you go on their website and try and buy a ticket, God forbid, it's actually a better experience and it's simpler. And so we can actually, and so Future Ticketing took away an action to say we'll make the Rochdale experience significantly better in a matter of weeks, which is great. So that's going to move forward. On a slightly more longer term solution, we can completely revamp the website and make it on a different technology. That's a 3 to 4 month development piece of work. So we're looking at the cost of that, but also when we start that again towards the back end, as look at season ticket renewal timings, etc. It'd be good if that was in place before then, so we could start to get to the window and make that decision. Do we want to commit to that more significant redevelopment of our ticketing website as a long-term partnership? And then the piece that brings all these together in the marketing sector would be called a CRM, or a customer relationship management system. So how do we have a single view of a supporter, whether that's a membership scheme or whether that's a supporter number, and how do we say, okay, we're talking to you and your number is ABC123, but we know that you buy tickets, we know that you buy hospitality, and we have a relationship with you that isn't just about physically today being sat in the room. So how we build that together and look at our CRM system again is a significant piece of work that's trying to move us forward. So, but yeah, that's how the kind of digital ecosystem, for a better word, comes together. And what do we choose to use as a CRM platform will move us forward massively.
We have a question from YouTube. I have a question. Why did we have 3 shirts, a third one? And also they do say if the club needs help, I am willing to sort posters or ask around with leaflets.
Sorry, I missed the first question, sorry.
So why did we have 3 shirts, a third one?
I'm looking at George. It's the decision made before mine.
Why did we have 3? Why did we have 3 kits?
Yeah.
Well, there's a ton of reasons. We got criticised a lot for only having 2 last year. To be fair, we've historically had 3 over the course of the last few years. If we were to have our colourways, make it difficult in some senses to have only 2. So even this season, for example, when we went to Aldershot, if we'd have only had the blue and the red, we wouldn't have had anything to play in. And if we go to, have we been to anyone with blue and white? I don't think we have yet. Oh yeah, Hartlepool, yeah, of course. If we'd have had just the blue and white, we'd have only had, we wouldn't have had anything to play in. So there's always sort of kind of 2 like wildly outlandish ones. They're guaranteed never to clash. But it's normally, if you look around clubs, definitely in the league, very, very few that have 3 in the league. It's not necessarily a commercial one in terms of trying to drive sales and stuff like that, because they probably cannibalise each other a little bit, and I don't know if we definitely sell more shirts by having 3 options. But there's definitely there's definitely football reasons for it.
That was the piece that I think we discussed when we talked with O'Neill's last year. We talked about what could we potentially brief them as their design. And the first conversation is a George conversation around what are the football operational needs for that, and the kit clash colours piece was a bit that then goes, okay, but we still don't need to sell those. We took a view to sell that. And I think the one piece I would say about the third shirt and the link with Kira Walsh being inspired by that, which was a decision, great piece of work and decision before my time, was I think actually that's such a unique thing that if we did it in the environment we're now operating with, both in terms of retail and in terms of the ownership, we'd have the ability to make much more of that, both here locally, but also as kind of an international and a national news piece, to be honest.
With that, you mentioned about if it isn't for commercial reasons, would there then be an avenue to look at with one of the shirts, so it's this season it's the third shirt, so next season it becomes the away shirt, which means you can at least one shirt every year, you can then advertise will last 2 years.
I wouldn't say it's solely, I would say it's predominantly for football. So there's a we haven't, the top bottom on it is, and Andy will know better than myself, the data that we capture from retail, we haven't got 20 years worth of data that we can look back on and go, last season we only had 2 shirts, and the season before we had 3, and we sold, picking numbers out of thin air, 1,000 of each, and we sold 1,500 of home and 1,500 away, and they balanced each other off last season. We haven't really got that level of data. So there's some commerciality to it. That's hence the reason that we're buying the goalkeeper shirts, because people like design and stuff. But it wouldn't be something that we completely rule out. Like I said, we're not contractually obliged to have like 3 shirts every season.
And I have seen previous clubs where you've had changing home and away each year, but actually a third shirt lasting 2 years. Yeah, I have seen that.
There'll be some. If you look around clubs, there'll be some kit deals that you're obliged to have 3 new each season. We haven't got any obligations contractually to have 3, but yes, it's a good suggestion. We'll think about.
There was one more question. Sorry, the foot was about the shirt.
They just mentioned as well, if the club needs any help, willing to sort posters or ask around with leaflets. What we said.
If the club needs any help,
I think the person having looking at the questions from, I think the person's basically saying if the club wants any volunteers or help with distribution of posters or handbills or specific leaflets or any specific thing that may be available.
Okay.
Gave this person whose name I'll give you later.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, okay. Let me chat through hospitality. So probably if we sat in the 1907, so this particular room, I can talk about boxes if that's useful, Ratcliffe Bar, etc. I think it would say the hospitality so far, hospitality sales revenue has been solid. It's not been outstanding. It's not been awful. We are about to enter a stage where it's going to get very, very busy, which is encouraging, and a couple of things really. I'll give you an example of this weekend. We've got 45 people or so in here. As a seasonal level, every single one of our boxes is taken. We have a kept box 12 free match by match, because we also do some community stuff in there. We've got boxes 1 and box 2. We've got 20 people in, and also we've actually got a party of 10 or 15 or so in box 12. So hospitality sales are going well. And if I look at the matches ahead, we're pretty much we've got capacity in the 1907 match by match stuff. All of our things like our match sponsorships, etc., are sold right through until the Altrincham game on New Year's Day. So it's a busy time, which is good. I think it's worth, and Cameron referenced it, it's worth acknowledging that our catering partner, Scratch, who do work here, are performing well, and we've had some great feedback around the quality of stuff they've done in pretty difficult circumstances. And again, Cameron updated that in his and talked around the kitchen we have here, and some of the kit that they're working with is pretty outdated. So, and there's a need to upgrade that, but that sort of investment will be made probably as part of a bigger project. And the only other bit to share with you, because we've not published it, not that it was particularly, it was very, very positive, and I can happily send it on the website, is we did a survey, and one of the key things about me is actually listening to how we got on. And so we did a hospitality survey a couple of weeks ago to everybody. We sent it out to everybody who had come here and bought hospitality in the 1907. I'll just quickly chat through the questions. So how would you rate the overall experience between excellent, good, average and poor? How satisfied were you with things like seating and label layout, view of the match, food, service, atmosphere and drinks choice? How likely would you be to recommend it to others? And then some free text answer around what most did you enjoy, what could be improved, and any additional feedback, and then a piece around which game did you attend, so you could actually work out, was it busy in here, was it not so busy here? And that's been invaluable, because we can only get information, listen to that feedback and say, actually, if the drinks choice isn't great, or if the food quality wasn't great, then we can look at that and see the work in that. So yeah, so that's just some ongoing work, but it's about to get busy in here. I will particularly mention the Oldham game, which is obviously a couple of weeks away. This place is already fully booked, and there's more demand to be in every hospitality area in the football club for the Oldham game. So we've got we've got 125 people split between here, and we're also using what we call as the old accounts office. I'm not sure if that was official name, next to the boardroom. There's a group that were in there last year of 20 that want to come again. I'll actually, in fact, specifically asked for that room again, so actually we're going to open that up for those guys. We've got a number of people have access to they pay for access to the AK bar, so we're going to have to enforce. I remember when I first came to the first ever fans forum, probably the day before it even started. We're going to have to enforce wristbands because we have fire regulations of how many people we can go, and a number of people have paid for a premium experience to be in here, and we need to make sure that that they have that experience that they've paid for. And so we are going to, for Oldham particularly, because of our fire regulations, have to enforce some of the open access that people have in and around this area for the people that have actually paid a significant amount of money to come and enjoy the day. But that's a great thing. If only we had 23 Oldhams every time, that would be brilliant. But that's worth just bearing in mind for hospitality. And as I said, the match sponsorships, which are 3 available, about at least 50% of the time, there are 2 rooms, box 1 and box 2 have 3 sponsorship packages, they're all gone. And as I said, it's about to get incredibly busy up until about Christmas, and there's some availability after Christmas. And we are starting to say, okay, let's look at next season. What is the right mix and what's the right proposition for the space we have? Is a formal dining thing, is a 2-course meal right? Should we have this more of informal and more open access as a pub and a bar? So we're open to all of those thoughts and suggestions. So we're not fixed in what we're doing, so we're starting to consider that next year and the proposition that we have. And it would be worth saying, obviously, we've got our first Ian Henderson event tomorrow night. Saturday night, sorry. Saturday night after the match. I'm a day ahead of myself. 120 people or so have booked onto that. We've got the second one in February, and we're potentially talking about a golf day with Ian as well. So they are additional additional hospitality things. So Saturday with a late kickoff will be a busy day for all the guys involved, and then also with Tuesday moving around the corner. I will just pause again. Has anyone got any questions? Or
there was one question, but you've already kind of answered it. How successful has the evening with Pendor been, and do we think similar future events will be worthwhile?
Yeah, I think yes, it's been successful, but it's also been a great way. And again, I've only been here a few months, but to celebrate his career with us and to give people the opportunity to spend time with him. And there are board of directors there in informal occasions. But I think it does 2 things. It's not necessarily it's as much an engagement piece as it is a commercial piece, to be honest. So I think it's the first start of that. And I know he's doing some work with the community trust, and he's looking at the other things he does in his time with us, for this season, which is great. So it's one part of many things that he's doing.
I think that's probably just important to re-emphasise, just to answer the question, that these are events to raise money predominantly for Ian. They're not commercial events for the
football club.
It's a thank you for his amazing service to the club. So it's not anything that we're doing to try and
So it's revenue. It's absolutely revenue neutral for the football club, and it's to say thank you to Ian for the time he spent with us and the service he's given, which is great. So that's the point of doing it.
The second part of the question is really about the club running things like that event where it's actually a profitable means of bringing revenue into the club. yes, it's a sportsman's dinner in the form of Ian Henderson,
Yes.
but I think what the guy's getting at is that actually there may be business opportunity.
Yeah. Sorry. 100%. Would we? Yeah. And I think about the work. I know Ant's did it, but the work we did trying to open for the England games, and there's some stuff now. Some of the Premier League games before this, that, and that. So yeah, crumbs. If we could, I'd love to do more of that. Yeah. And there is a risk reward type thing where we've got to be confident if we put something on that people are going to come. So we do have that judgment around price and attractiveness, and that's a very much an active conversation. But yeah, if we can do more things like that, that we're confident, and if people have got suggestions on what they feel are attractive events that we could run, I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you look historically, the club used to run like events on a weekend, like soul nights. And
right.
When I was doing a lot of the fundraising, going around the pubs in Rochdale with my little bucket and my ladder and walking around, it was a big question about why we stopped as a club. Now I know one of the reasons is because the DJ is no longer.
Yeah, there weren't club events. I think it's probably the key bit to make. It was all outsourced stuff.
Yeah,
but there were good events.
There's window of opportunities there. So I think there's a market and there's an appetite that the club should be looking to exhaust.
Yeah, it's just a touch back on it. Yeah, Sportsman's Dinner type 1, and you'll probably know there, but there's two different options. You can take the risk of running it yourself, or there's tons of companies who do it brilliantly as well. So we had the Brian Robson one last season, didn't we? And it sold out with minutes. Yeah. So we de-risk it and don't have to pay someone to turn up and just take the bar takings and the hire fee and stuff like that. So there's different ways to do it. But yeah, it's definitely something we'd like to.
Yeah, that'd be more. I will talk to us. One of the challenges is we've got a lot to do. So there's a piece around in kind of my priorities and the priorities, the commercial priorities of the football club. And I'll use a phrase a lot of times about kind of fewer, bigger, better, which is, you talk about even a sponsorship relationship, not naming individuals, but the big sponsorships we have take as much management relationships and all as actually the smaller ones we have. Actually, it's just despite the money that might exchange hands and the commerciality, but actually the work behind both is very, very similar. And it's actually the same about everything. A lot of the things that me and my team do. So there is a kind of ruthless prioritization of what are the single biggest things that are going to, and we can't. This the reality is we can't do everything. So we have to be quite. If I can bring in a new sponsor for a sleeve and that generates tens of thousands of pounds. Then that will take priority versus 15 events, and it is those sorts of comparisons that you've got to look at, because we have got scarce resource, and
we have got scarce resource, but we've also got some fairly unique resource as well. Obviously, on a day of football, the building's used for that, but when we're away, when it's close season, we're not far in this of having the same sort of space using the Radcliffe, the Dale Bar, even up here, that some of the big civics and local venues have. And I'm referring to Hayward and referring to Middleton, both I prefer to be vouched for, where they, from a financial point of view, an in-house, they just use the name there, Soul Night. But the 60s and 70s nights, for example, you have the space, we have the bars, and the organisation behind that is fairly limited, but the profits are very substantial.
Yeah.
Are you going to be looking to try and utilise these spaces that we've got, which, although are busy, as you just described on a match day, are predominantly empty the rest of the time? We
talk a lot about very much in the long-term vision, but also the short-term, and more of a 365 usage of this stadium, because it's ultimately it's a capital building that we should have in not 23 home league games or 30 matches a year. The scarce resource generally actually talks about head office people that are employed by the football club. There used to be a role, and we've identified a desire to bring in like an events manager type role in the future, both in terms of selling these spaces kind of more actively. I know individuals have had that role in the past, but also then delivering events that are to a high quality standard. But that's not a role that currently exists there's a kind of administrative role around booking rooms, etc., but not a sales and a kind of delivery role. But again, that is has been talked about, the question around that particular role and pushing that area much harder, because you're actually right, it's an income stream that we're probably not maximising. Is when we bring when do you bring the individual on, and that's a staffing cost. So when we bring the individual on to do that, and at what stage? But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and it satisfies also the word community, because the organs are very concerned or interested that the club is part of the community, and obviously in sport through the community trust, through the actual football team, through the sports trust, etc. We are part of the community, but there's a huge part of the community that isn't really interested necessarily in watching football on a regular basis, but might well be interested in using the facilities, and therefore could become interested in or have some form of allegiance to us. So I think we mustn't hide from these people. Get to them as soon as possible, because the more of Rochdale community and that community of people start to use us, although football will always be the reason why most of us are here, you are actually tapping into commercial markets, because every single person who walks in will have a family. If you're like me, you've got a daughter that's going to get married, and space is all you're going to be looking for. So it opens up so many avenues for you by doing commercially.
100%, 100%. Yeah, and we need to push that hard.
It'll be interesting to follow.
Just on the use of that, how happy are we with the way the games have, done beanbags? How happy when we've done beanbags from away games, when they've shown the away games in the bars, how happy have we been with the success of those events? I'll
need to come and look at Anthony. I'll need to come back to you, because I'm not sure. I've not got the data on the benchmark on how much we've sold and that sort of thing. I think there's been ups and downs on the kind of numbers of people attending and kind of bar takings and that sort of piece.
Definitely worth it.
And again, this piece around.
And if there could be what's happened is we found out in short notes before, but if there could be a commitment that every Tuesday night one can be shown. Yeah. And if we know that now, because I think if we can build that, because all of us who have it, have dragged down a few more people, so if we can guarantee that now, and promote it in advance, because they have been genuine community events as well.
Well, I've already started the forces up and dragging from the gates.
There you go. But as you're going with the raffles and things like that, there's still little things like that. There's so many other things that could be tagged onto it.
I remember we talked about the England ones particularly, saying after that it was really disappointing that there wasn't a game we could show, because I think we were just getting people back into the habit. I'm not sure we've done it in the past. But you build up that habit that goes, if there's a big Premier League game, we know it will be on that, or if you're with your mates or yourself and you actually, I want to watch the football. We literally had this conversation today. So I would love to go to the football club I support and watch a sports game. I don't really mind if it's Champions League or Premier. It'd be a great thing to sit in a Rochdale Football Club venue and watch sport. But we need to get it on regularly and do that piece to make it the habit that people go, actually, it's my default place, rather than A, at home, or B, a local pub, or wherever people choose to watch it. So getting that visibility, communicating, I think here's our schedule so people can do that. But I think we're starting as an organisation to get into the habit of putting them on and publicising them as we get into a better calendar planning. That is a good, great. I think it's worked out well for us. It's not, George, it's not been life changing, but there are many aspects to do it, and a lot of it is actually getting us together. Getting us together as a club and as a group of fans to enjoy an experience together has massive value, as well as.
And if you look to those fans, although as George says, it wasn't life changing, I think one of the interesting things about the England game, which I think we helped with answering the first one, was that there was families there as well, besides the hoi polloi that sits over here and all that.
No, and I thought my family was lovely. It was lovely.
It was really nice to see it was really interesting to see that the families felt safe among the atmosphere that was being created.
Right.
And I think those big events certainly work really well. They will aim towards regular, maybe one-nighters. I think it's something that you need to be looking at for the long-term future and saying these are the England games that are going to be, or these are the international, whatever, that have significance. And tell us now, so I'll tell people now. So we've got a project for the next 6-7 months.
Yeah.
I think just to wrap that up, I don't see why there's any reason why we wouldn't do everyone that we're allowed to.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
3 PM blackouts and stuff like that.
And I think that's the thing, because we know that those who turn up 12 months expected. It's getting that out there and saying, just be aware that we've got all these and people can then plan into the calendar, and also we can promote it ourselves a bit better. I think those, it's you preach it to the converted, those of us who just turn up, it's making other people realise.
So I guess as a kind of, it's kind of reinforce also repeat what George has said. We have every possible opportunity to open the place up that is literally just kind of makes it commercially viable, so we don't lose money, and we don't have to make them with them all open it up. You know, and that's it. And as long as we can staff it and make it commercially viable, then you know the opportunity to get it open as much time as possible is exactly kind of the mindset.
Yeah, just for context for the streaming, and some of them in the room will know more in particular, it was when we did it last year with TNT, we had to pay £200 a game for the feedbacks every year. The Supporters Trust kindly funded that each time. With the zone at the minute, there's no charge, so it does make a big difference. They're not being any charge. Touching on the England stuff, there's decisions to be made on, has been rightly flagged up with some of the feedback on the forums, particularly Anthony's touched some of the run that unfairly probably, but on buying Sky, buying TNT, all that kind of stuff, it's really expensive to buy Sky, really expensive, like prohibitively expensive, in the thousands per month. It's quite difficult to make a business case for that, given the games that we more regularly screen are on TNT. So we've just stuck with TNT for the minute, but there's definitely decisions to be made on that in future. So some of the England stuff, for example, is a bit dependent on what broadcaster's got a specific game and whatever.
I think that's when you separate what's happening now in the immediate months ahead versus what might be the plans, the longer term plans. You know, if there's any redevelopment of the stadium and if you have an experience there, and when those things will be kind of addressed. But yeah,
there is one interesting game that you might not have thought about.
Yeah,
it's the Boxing Day game at Fire. Because that will
it's not Saturday, is it? Boxing Day.
So because obviously we'll have good travelling power when we may sell out, but with it being Boxing Day, could you put on a Christmas type event with it being back?
Essentially, we haven't.
You're
rightly pointing out, I don't think we thought that far ahead.
No, we haven't.
I'm not sure the following fixtures are the New Year one.
The New Year's Day, we're at home to Baltimore.
Yeah, and it's the one on. I don't know.
It's not one in between actually.
But the Fire one was that, because if you're only family, you can't get Fire.
Yeah. Good. No, thanks. Great.
We have one little bit of feedback on sort of talking about events. That quiz nights and a race night could be good for the club, and also a soul night would be excellent.
Yeah, I think which ones I mentioned.
Soul night.
So I think there's a bit of moral support possible.
We did a little bit last year with Spring Hill Hospice. We hosted a couple of their quiz nights. It was more their events. Yeah, rather than anything else. I don't know if anybody came to one of those. The first one I was at was fairly well attended, but like I say, it's just formalising things.
We recently run a quiz night as a fundraiser. So it does get attendance, but whether it's enough to keep it.
Well, at some point we've probably got to give them. It's a bit like I remember in the first month I was here, we had the internal chat around the England games, that we're going through, saying, we've got to try some stuff, and you've got to be willing to fail to try it, but we also said, I think about those 3 England games, the first one we said, we will commit to doing all of them, because then at least, and I think one of them was a midweek game, wasn't it? There was a couple of weekend ones, and one was like a Tuesday or Thursday, and that was quieter. And it was like, okay, but we said we've got to commit to doing it, even if that one itself might not have been as successful, because it becomes builds up that habit that you actually, if I'm going to watch European Championships or whatever, I'm going to watch it at Rochdale. So that was it. We've got to try some stuff, even if we get the permission that if it's not going well, if tickets aren't going to sell, it's going to lose the club money, then we have to kind of cancel. It's awful to cancel it within a week's notice, but that's the sort of decision you have to make. Then that's the decision you have to make. But at least we'll have tried. Pardon? Yeah, we have to a little bit. Yeah. I was chatting about the more significant sponsorships. Just think about kit, stands. Some of those are up for renewal at the end of this season, and we are also contractually into a number of multi-year contracts with people like Crown Oil, O'Neill's, and I guess maybe common thing to update on is we're having a larger number of kind of quality conversations with both regional local and national brands and businesses around who could be part of the Rochdale AFC story going forward. So, you know, any help in relationships is always massively gratefully received, because I personally have relationships with a number of significant sponsors, both here in the Northwest, but also kind of nationally. But ultimately, a lot of the time is we've got to tell the story of the journey that we're now about to, or we're embarking on under the ownership we're with, and sharing those plans. And it is great to do that. And there's a lot of excitement when we talk about the ownership, the changes. You know, obviously the football is going well this season, but what's quite happening next year and the year after, you know, is an exciting.
I think that's an interesting story, because kind of those are a little bit more savvy with what's going on, and excited by it. So a large proportion of fans we're safe as a club because we have investment. We've had Peter on the pitch waving. What you're wanting to develop, which I'm not sure whether I should be talking about now, so I won't, but you have plans. Some of it you've started to mention now, but a lot of the supporters don't know. Yeah. And I'm just wondering whether the impetus of the excitement of Peter and the team coming in, and the revenue bringing in, and the saviour that he was, has now been accepted, and we move on. It's all about football again. And the bigger picture that's actually happening is just being pushed to one side in fans' mind. Maybe we need to reinvigorate that. Keep it exciting. You use the word excitement a few months ago. But that excitement needs to be fizzled up a bit more. It's
not right for me to speak on Cameron's behalf, but I guess what I would say is, and I think of Cameron, particularly Jamie and Adam, we had a board meeting today. They're aware, they're acutely aware that maybe from a fan's perspective, it might feel like there's not as much change as they like, and they kind of say how quickly as possible can they share the plans that are kind of A, in their heads, and B, that are actively being worked on. And that was the kind of reassurance at the start, saying there is stuff actively being worked on, probably behind the scenes. It's not probably packaged up nicely enough to talk to people publicly about it yet, but you know, there is an expectation that, you know, in the weeks and months ahead, that it will be packaged up nicely enough to try and share that vision and some of the kind of longer term plans. So I guess, without speaking on their behalf, my reassurance to you is they're aware of that feedback, and they're aware that kind of arguably, you know, they were here. I know Jamie's up this weekend. I know there were a period of time, especially throughout November, when a lot of the family are up for various games, etc. So I think it'll be more visible as well, and there might be an opportunity. And at that time, it might be actually the sort of time that they're able to talk around the plans.
There's several fans asked us, fans of me asked, and it's very difficult to sort of explain the excitement I might be feeling and why they should feel it. Obviously, it's information that will come from the club, so if there is a little bit of the story that can go out sooner and better, but people are interested why things have gone quiet.
Yeah, I think one piece of note I made down here, and there was an announcement made, and it was a couple of weeks ago, and I think we probably even talked about it, is we've appointed an agency as a relationship with the owners around called AML, which is like an international advertising agency based in both, they have offices in London and New York, and they're helping us put together that story, in an appealing way, but also in an organised way that we can tell people about it, you know. So the ownership group are particularly aware that maybe they've been quieter, if I can say that, the last 4 to 6 weeks. You know, and time moves fast in the football fans' mind, particularly around, okay, we haven't heard much. But hopefully in the weeks and months ahead, they're able to really say, we hear the exciting plans outside of the core 3 mission statements around, you know, better football and building a financially sustainable football operation.
I think the only bit I just layer on top of that, Andy, is that I don't think we're ever, if we talk about personalities involved, we're never going to be in a situation where people are going to be screaming from the rooftops and it becomes a distraction, for want of a better word. Everything's understated, everything's professional, and everything's focused on delivery both on and off the pitch. So I think Andy's key point there is there's no kind of secrecy about any of the plans, but when they're in a form to be communicated, what they really don't want to do is communicate something half-baked and it looks amateurish, for want of a better word. They're highly professional in everything they do, and they want to communicate things in a professional in a professional fashion.
I think the conversation I just had before we kind of went live was the other piece which George talked about, the fans forum or the updates, is while they also are actively involved in myself, George, Simon speak hundreds of times a week, and a day, etc. Is they are delegating responsibility fundamentally to me and George to run things day to day. So that is also, they've got an executive team in place whose job is to run the operation, and so they are also empowering us to do that. So I think fans, and again the commitment to, I think we spoke before, is if George and I do 5, 10, 15 events a year combined, that is accessibility as well. But we are around every single match day. We are around. We'll share whatever we can. So I think there's that openness and accessibility for us to as kind of a leadership team, for a better word. That I think doesn't necessarily also lie. I must hear from the owner. I must hear from a board director, because I think actually you'll hear far more regularly and kind of smaller pieces, but more regularly from myself and George. So
one of the things you fight against this issue, because this football club has historically failed completely off the pitch, and the fans are almost downtrodden to the point where they expect it to be like this all the time. And I remember we had a conversation going back probably 2-3 months in the Rochdale Farm. Yeah. And one of the big things I said, the biggest thing you've got to change is the culture.
Yeah.
You've got to, and you're not going to make an immediate change, but the culture is not changing. So those of us in this room, it's to the town and to show we are doing things differently, and that will take time. And it's getting that.
And I'm going to give you a can, because I think we'll be judged, and I'll think about my role, we'll particularly be judged by tangible things, but not what I say today. And we spoke about that hospitality survey, interestingly, and there's two risks. One is we got some great insight and useful feedback around the experience that people had, and we also got some great feedback around crumbs. You've actually sent me a survey to say, how was my experience? Just by asking for that itself was a step, and that's the thing that people will judge people like myself and my team for in my role, and say, actually, crumbs, that feels different. That looks different. We've done some work, and we have had some limited but really effective investment in this particular room. So I remember coming into this particular room on the first times, and it wasn't a great experience. Some of the kind of ambience wasn't great. But actually, with relatively affordable investment, we've upgraded that quite a lot, and the experience is significantly better. So if you look at the website and the pictures that actually happen in this room, that's a great example. So people will judge, rightly, my kind of role in that. Actually, do I feel and do I see a change? So if we have, I won't name the individual, but someone came as a sponsor in box 1 and had a great day, and she was like, this has just been such a step forward than previous years. And I said, please be our advocate and tell people that we are trying to improve things, and it is actually different. But you're right, there might have been historical disappointment, but then the nature of my job is kind of judges on what's happening now. That's all that me and the team can do.
I think for a lot of people, as Matt was saying, seeing is believing. When they see the changes taking place, they'll start to think, hang on a minute, it's getting better than it used to be. Yeah. Or the football's better on the pitch, or the surroundings are better, or whatever it is. But they need to see it
they do.
To actually accept it, rather than listen to all the blurb and the background noise. Oh yeah, we've heard it all before, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which I think talks a little bit to why there perhaps hasn't been loads of comments on things that are changing, because there's no point talking about it. It needs to be definitive.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think I do refer back to the statement that Cameron made when he talked around. They've got some significant plans, and that means actually some of the short-term stuff that you might say, why don't we spend £10,000 updating that kitchen? It might not be the right thing to do at this particular point in time, because we might have bigger plans that we're not able to share, but they're just further down the line. So I think take that in the spirit that I think it was given, and I think that's the piece when we can do that. A couple of summary notes from me. Key focus for my role, securing maximum possible revenue for the club and for the rest of the season and next season, and very much setting up the relationships and some of the confidence around being involved with Rochdale Football Club as a sports organisation for seasons ahead. There is I mentioned it, a significant systems review going on, which is behind the scenes stuff. It's not glamorous or sexy, and a lot of people. But if fans go to try and buy a ticket, and in 2 or 3 months time go, wow, I went on that, it looked different, it was easier, I wanted to buy hospitality, it took quicker to load than I was able to do, then they will start to see some changes. So that is a significant systems review that's currently taking place. And I think the piece down here is around, I've written a kind of there is a massive need to get on the front foot and tell the Rochdale story and tell the story out. You know, and it is genuinely encouraging in my role to, when you have the opportunity to do that, how really excited and well received it is. You know, so some of the conversations that arguably are maybe with kind of sponsors, what a better word, in a confidentiality framework, you know, we're able to share things, which is great, and I think people are genuinely excited about what's being built here, which is great. Final element that I've kind of mentioned is around, we are looking at the area of kind of fan services, for a better word. How do fans access us? We've got some generic email addresses, and we've got the phone operating system, etc. And how accessible are we to just general inquiries and lots of things? And again, that is yet another thing that isn't directly related to revenue, but actually becomes the fan experience, is another area. So how we make sure that if someone sets a bit of communication into the club, how quickly you can respond and make sure that those queries are addressed, is a key focus. Yeah, and then the final piece would be around, as I touched on before, it's around priorities, and particularly the short term is around football income, for the next weeks and months ahead. But then it's also around how we look at generating non-football income for this stadium. So some of the points you touched on, you know, that is, we've got to turn that tap on as well, because that's the only way that we'll get anything close to being sustainable. Yeah. So hopefully some use. You know, Q&A. If there's any more questions from people online or around the room, or, you know, as I said at the start, the purpose of this, and maybe that we as a team, as a kind of wider group, need to reframe the meeting. It's a focus group. So going forward, it'd be good if people have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And you know, that's useful for us to hear, for me to hear, the wider team to hear about it.
Well, on that, there's a little bit of feedback about another possible event we could have. Why don't we have an old players' night, ex-Dale players' night, where they can talk about their careers and a bar's open and food on?
Thank you.
So I think not to jump the gun on that. So the second Anderson event will be a bit of that.
Yeah.
So the first one's very much just him telling his story. The second one is Ian Henderson and friends, for want of a better title. So there'll certainly be some returning teammates.
Yeah. Your days as a marketeer haven't been lost, George, have they?
I'm not sure whether that's great, George. I'm pleased to hear that, and they have fresh about handover from his mates. As for ex-players, obviously we have our contacts into the ex-players as well, and we've used them, as do the club, on social events as well. The ex-players might well be one group of people who you can use for some of your experimental work, for example, like on the quiz nights. Instead of just having a quiz night with Andy Duff and George Bells playing the numbers, have somebody.
You'd like somebody to turn up. It was an Andy Duff and George there.
But we have names who are really interested and fans of that to meet regularly on those occasions. That maybe even to wine.
Yeah, lovely. I love the idea. Yeah.
Smaller thing, because it's not always a quiz night for fun, because most of us on the trust board cheat when we go to these things. But also because if you've got a spice of ex-players there, you've got the excitement, the selfies, and everything else that goes with it. And I think we generate more people to come.
That's a great idea. I'm not saying just a quiz night, but I mean, quiz night on its own can come and go. But actually, sprinkle it with a bit of interest. That'd be great. Yeah.
I think just on the ex-player stuff, Bob, it's a really, really good point. One thing we're trying to do a little bit, and it's been a bit of a personal bugbear of mine, of we've got a core group of ex-players who do an unbelievable job for us, but I don't think we've got many, for want of a better phrase, the newer ex-players. So lads who are playing, like, let's say someone, so what we've got in both Jim and also now Josh Lillis is we've got individuals from those teams that I think people would be really interested in hearing from as well. Because we have the newer ex-players, for want of a better word, lads who played perhaps from 2015 onwards, let's say, putting a figure out of thin air. We don't access those guys quite as well as we access.
The ones I was kind of referring to.
When we run Kerry nights, we do it once a year. If we basically just pick people that played the club 20, 30 years ago, it may not necessarily be as well attended. So we do try and get a broad mix where we get
We're sounding out of
this time, you know.
Yeah.
It's got one at the back a bit, I'm just a bit more of an early retired person. Yeah, so we do try and get that mix of good work, and it does bring in the broad
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely a few more we can tap into. I think it's what we'd like to do. If you think about, I don't know, people out there, Matt Domes and Matty Luddens and people like that. We haven't done a brilliant job yet of tapping into. I know Luddy's still playing, obviously. We haven't done a great job yet of tapping into. Into those guys.
It's been, you know, it's, on a previous football club, it's been great to have them here and supporting us in the 1907. It's great. I think they enjoy it. I personally look after them to go here, but also down to the pitch and do the half-time draw and things like that, you know, and to build on that sort of thing, it'd be brilliant. And that's, again, it reinforces that link between kind of former players where we are today and the club that we're trying to create. So, yeah, again, hugely supportive of that. If we can accelerate that and get that network working stronger for us, that's great. Yeah,
we have another suggestion here as well. Off the back of the success of the Feel Good Festival, could a smaller linked event work with utilising the Ratcliffe, Studs and 1907, the three venues?
Yeah, thank you. We have looked at Feel Good. We've also looked at particularly end of season, and we've obviously got pitch and do we do things around picnic on the pitch and do we do all this sort of stuff. So, but thank you. Yeah, we're looking at them all. Yeah.
The stadium concert's been a constant. The council have massively unsupportive over it. Residents kicked off last time. It's still something we'd like to do in the medium term, but there's quite a lot to do on it. But definitely something. That idea of almost having three stages, for want of a better word, of having something in the Redcliffe, something up here, and something up the Pearl Street, is a real good idea, to be fair.
And that's the elegancy of mirroring some of the community events that they hold in some of the community venues around Rochdale, where I mean, we just used the word Northern Soul before, where one of the main rooms, one place I can think of, was active with that. In another room further down, there was a different type of music, different DJ on, and in one of the other rooms, which I think was housing just a maximum 50 people, there was a different type of music going on. So it was a music event catering for three genres, all relevant to present day, and it sold really, really well. So I don't think if you're looking to extend cultural events, musical events, then there's scope to intermix in one go.
Yeah.
Because you've got facilities to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Any more online, or are we
No, nothing just yet. A minute if you'd like.
I guess just to kind of reinforce and wrap up, if there is indeed wrapping up, hopefully George and I can be available to do as many, you know, I know when we kind of day-to-day contact for us, but to do these as people want and need, you know, and also the conversation that, you know, I'm around pretty much everyone on match day, and we don't have to wait for an event to have a conversation, you know, so we use the commercial at Rochdale inbox, but if people have got stuff they need to talk to us about and things, then use that, because that's the right accessibility, is to kind of hear the views and also to try and share what's going on as much as we can. So useful today, but also let's not necessarily wait for an event to have a conversation. We can do that at any time.
If we're finished, can I just mention something that's maybe not to do with the subject tonight? It's to do with the coach travel. One of the things that is important to emphasise is that it was in fact the Ogden family that suggested to the trust to do the coach travel, and backed up by subsidising for the season the cost of hiring coaches. Now there are several ways that people can actually go to a game, so we're not saying it has to be with the trust with coach travel, but what we are saying is that the prices that we've been able to negotiate with the coach travel company we use means that perhaps it makes it more accessible for people to use the coach than it is alternative methods that we may have at the moment. One of the things that when we talk about changing the culture, which you mentioned, Matt, you know, the culture has been until recently that there's been no coach travel from last season. And when it was offered by the club, for no fault of the club, it was uneconomical to keep putting coaches on. So people, I think, have got into the habit of not thinking about coach travel and perhaps assuming that it'll be the same. And it will be the same when coaches are cancelled unless people support it. And in particular, we've got the Barnet game a week on Saturday, and coach travel is on sale at the moment. But what I would emphasise is if any of the fans, any of you at all want to travel on the coach, don't leave it till Wednesday next week to try and book on it. We need to be able, very early on, to tell the coach company what size of coach we require and whether a coach is required. So I would emphasise, please, if you want to use the coach travel, and some people in the room have used it and found it successful, then please book on now, not next week. It's part of the fans' inclusion that the Ogden family are so keen on, especially with the longer trips, because they think if we can make it economical for people to travel on the coach to the away trips like Barton, Wealdstone, Aldershot, wherever it may be, then that's including more people to support the team when they're going through a successful period at the moment. And we should say, if they need to get even more support when things get a bit sticky, that's when people support the team. And if the club, if the trust through the Ogden family can make it possible for more people to travel at a price which, for example, Barnet is £35. So when it was filed last week, it was 15.
Yeah.
So £7.50 each way return. So
amazing.
Please support it, because simply, if fans don't want the coach service, then there's no point in providing it.
Yeah.
So please book now.
And again, from my point of view, that's what obviously we're here to say thank you. Anthony opened up this evening, so it's great, and he's got a very busy Saturday with both this a football game at 5:30 and Ian Henderson, and the very busy Tuesday doing. So I just want to make a personal thanks for Anthony coming in, because it enables us to have this environment, which is great. So it's important to say thanks for doing that.
And finally, thanks very much for Andy to be here tonight. And
Thank you.
so